Hello and welcome to the Quocast, your provocative and insightful look into the world of travel branding. I'm your host, Ryan Ray Jones, the editorial director at Quo. On today's show, we travel to Amsterdam to talk to Michael Levi, COO at citizenM, and Andre Wiringa, CXO at Performance Solutions. Plus, Bill Barnett at C9 Hotelworks goes on a rant. But first, it's the Quo Roundtable. Thanks everybody for joining me at the Quo Roundtable. Before we get started, let's go around the table and have each of you introduce yourself and tell us what you do here at Quo.
Hi Orion, I'm Fabrice. I'm the commercial director for Quo Asia and managing director for our office in Saigon.
I'm David. I work with new clients on development.
I'm Pierre. I'm the creative director.
So today we're going to talk a little bit about the subject of authenticity. At the beginning of June, the Hilton Worldwide Group created a new brand of hotels called the Curio Collection. And in the release announcing the new collection, they describe the hotel group as for travelers who seek local discovery and authentic experience. So the idea of being authentic is pretty common in our line of business, and everybody talks about providing guests with authentic experiences. And some of the brands we've worked with definitely put that at the top of their description. So first of all, I wanted to ask you guys what authenticity means to you in a hospitality context.
Well, I think that nowadays the hospitality sector is struggling to find new avenues to differentiate themselves from their competitors. So therefore, I think the word authentic can be applied, but it's a difficult one to apply because there is nothing original there. They all, I think, follow the same trend.
Yeah, I think authenticity is something you believe when you see it. It's what's promised. So in being promised a hotel experience, I have an expectation. And maybe the third angle or fourth angle is what I've heard other people say about it because there's an assessment happening. Yes, that's an authentic experience. So maybe I'm more likely to believe someone else. But at the heart of it, it's got to be genuine. It's got to be whatever it is. And even if it's fantasy, it has to be genuine. It has to be real.
Fantastical and real all at once?
Well, if that's what the promise is, then I guess Disneyland can be authentic. It's authentic fantasy.
Fabrice, have you ever been to an authentic hotel that you thought, wow, I'm having an authentic experience right now?
Yeah, I just would like to go back to what you were saying earlier, that the authenticity is something fairly common in the hotel industry. I think that's true, but it's very recent. I mean, in the past, when I say in the past, is up to probably 10 years ago, the hotel industry was very much about delivering a certain level of comfort in certain locations. So it was all about having flags, having certain facilities in certain locations. But now as the competition grows, then the guests becoming more and more demanding and becoming more and more aware of what is available and what could exist. That's forcing the large hotel chains or the smallest operators to deliver authentic experience. So I think it's something very, very new. The example that you've named for coming from Hilton, that's just one more. I mean, all the large hotel chains have been going that path in the past 7-8 years, I would say. But it's not older than that. 10 years ago, this kind of authentic brands from the large operators didn't really exist.
Do you think it's a real thing that exists, or is it a marketing term?
No, it's something that exists. It's very real. The authentic experiences that these brands deliver are authentic. I mean, in general, it's very well done. It delivers what it promises.
I think it's well done, but as always, a new buzzword comes on the market and everyone else follows the trend. For the first one to implement, I think, an authentic experience, it's got some values, but for the followers, it's got less values for me.
Obviously, there's a desire for authenticity in the market. As a brand manager or a property owner, wanting to deliver an authentic experience and possibly not being a better businessman than a creative, what should I do to give my guests an authentic experience? What do you
exactly mean by authentic? Do you mean like culturally authentic, like rooted in the local culture, or do you mean authentic in terms of one particular theme? For instance, we were talking about Disney earlier. I think, Disney is an authentic experience in terms of fantasy, or I don't know how you describe it. Now, it doesn't mean it's an authentic cultural experience, nothing to do with the Orlando, Florida culture, for instance. So, not sure if I'm answering your question here, but I think the goal is really to define very precisely what the brand new hotel, or what your brand new hotel is going to be, without being afraid to alienate a very large part of the potential customer base. I think the smaller your target, the more authentic your brand, the experience is going to be.
If you talk about Walt Disney is completely fabricated. Well, not completely, because it comes from obviously the animation world. It's pure fantasy world, but they managed to translate that fantasy world in a context that is true to the original. So somehow there is some authenticity. But if it was completely invented, then it would be difficult to be authentic, I think. So yes, it's fantasy. Fantasy is a bit of a paradox working with authenticity, but still it works for me.
Pierre, when you have a client come to you and ask, and they think that they're an authentic brand and they want that translated visually into the right identity, what does that mean to you, and how do you go about, visually showing authenticity? What does that word mean to you?
It's quite simple. It's a bit like designing a label for a can of beans. Actually oversells in terms of quality, and the beans are, when you open the can, you're disappointed about the beans. Is whatever is on the label and whatever is in the can needs to match up. If it doesn't match up, then it's a failure for me.
Yeah, the promise and the desire, of creating something has to match up.
The idea of not lying to your customers isn't entirely new in the world of marketing, but the idea of authenticity does seem to be new, to me anyway. I think you hear a lot more of it. Do you think that there's a reason, there's something in the zeitgeist that's making people want this idea of authenticity, that years past they thought they lived in a more artificial world and they're seeking something that we're providing?
I think it's an evolution of marketing. I mean, we've gone from packaging product and marketing products aggressively has been around a relatively short amount of time with advertising agencies and that sort of thing. And we've pushed the boundaries of all the fabulous things that a soap powder can do, a hotel experience can do. And maybe it's because consumers are now very wary of what promises are. They have not only themselves, the promise of the owners, but they've got their friends that are now reviewing something and putting it on Facebook. So I've got a friend that will go to a restaurant and say, this is a fantastic experience. That's another way of looking at a proposition. So now I've got two ways. I've got the owner saying, this is what the restaurant delivers, and I've got a friend saying, that's right, that meets up. So now I can go and expect a real experience. And that level of authenticity, when there's so much out there, when there are so many restaurants to go to, why would I not go to something that is more authentic than the next?
And also remember that 30, 40 years ago, while people could already travel and travel long distance, basically everywhere, whether it was Asia, Africa, North America, hotels were being perceived or were being used as shelters, basically. People were traveling, discovering new cultures, but at night, they were using hotels as a shelter for protection, and they were comfortable in this kind of sterile, in some cases, environment. But they were, it was a shelter. But now, as people are more well-traveled and more willing to discover new cultures and feeling more comfortable in the destination they visit, they don't mind now actually extending their experience into the hotels where they stay.
Well, on that inspiring note, we will end this Quolo Roundtable. I want to offer you my authentic thanks for joining us this episode, and I'll see you around the table next time.
Next up, we head to Amsterdam for a special interview with David Keane, Michael Levi, and Andre Wiringa.
Hi, good afternoon. Here we are in Amsterdam. I'm David Keane, the founder and CEO of Quo. I am with two very honored guests, Michael Levi, co-founder and managing director or chief operating officer of citizenM, and Andre Wiringa, the chief experience officer of performance solutions, which as a company has been very involved in the creation of behavior and experience at citizenM. Michael, we were talking just before we went on air about OTAs. How much damage are they doing to brand, and how much are they bringing in terms of vision to the business?
Well, I think that first of all, one, as a hotelier, should take a look at an OTA as a tremendous opportunity to get billboard, and as them providing you a choice whether you would like to go with brand or operate as an independent and make use of an OTA billboard, where before there was only the choice of brand. And I think that is a wonderful opportunity that they created. One also has to understand that OTAs have an ability to buy a click that we as a hotel or as a chain even are not able to buy. So we're in Amsterdam. Let's give an Amsterdam example. The click Hotel Amsterdam might be 5 or 6 euros a click. If my hotel is running full and I receive 150 or 200 clicks, I pay that times 5 or 6, and I cannot afford it. When you have an inventory of 400 or 500 hotels in the city, and you always have inventory and thus the ability to convert, then it is your own ability and how well you convert that allows OTAs to bid on that. So they're in a different space than we are as hotels, and I think we need to realize that. Having said that, the internet is a fair playing field for everybody. So we all are capable and able to play the internet. And I think that we as hoteliers have not put enough effort, not enough smart, not enough research, and not enough creativity into using the internet appropriately. So if I tell you that I have a consumer behaviorist heading up my website, and if I tell you that I have several analysts working for me, and you go like, well, wait a minute, what type of company are you? I'm a hotel company, but I work and I sell only electronically. I sell in that last window of opportunity when I see what the market does and I optimize as much as possible. And still I'm able to provide affordable luxury to people and usually undercut or be more efficient in my pricing than my competitors. So it's all a strategy and it's all a way to go about it. And I think that the large chains have largely dependent on the strength of their brand name, which maybe is largely propelled by their frequent stay programs and the loyalty in the frequent stay programs. And that inevitably is going to change in the future as the OTAs will have their own frequent stay programs and they're earlier in the food chain.
I mean, it's interesting that you say that. And before we went on air, we were talking about bucketizing, or you were talking about bucketizing your consumer, or let's put that in a more simple terms, perhaps in informing the desire for your target market, informing the market for who is going to frequent citizenM. When you're forming that desire, when you're forming those buckets, in some ways a way of getting around the OTA to drive direct business into the site?
No,
not really.
No, not really. I think that I see the OTA as my partner. I hate to write the check at the end of the month. I mean, obviously we all feel that, the cost there is steep. But on the other hand, the alternative of buying brand or advertising or doing it different ways, we see that the efficiency is not there. So we have to recognize that the OTA is there. Now, bucketizing or lining your product up with a client that, expects a certain service and finds that in your product, the better you align it, the better the guest satisfaction will go, regardless, of what it is that you're doing. So providing your product and providing it consistently to a part of the market that really values that's an easy win.
Are you, as you've evolved the brand, have you been surprised as to who's coming, who's frequenting the brand?
Well, many people ask us what is our age group. And most probably the best way is to say, I have no clue. The same way as when people ask, is it for business or for leisure people? I really don't care what you come and do at the hotel. It's an experience that you have with us. And I think an experience lives in your heart, and it's a state of mind. And it doesn't matter how old you are. I think it has to do with your wallet and your willingness to spend on an experience.
I think it's about desire.
Yeah.
I think it's about desire. I think it's about, I mean, as I was mentioning before, I was having breakfast at the hotel this morning, and there was a beautiful 75, at least, I don't know what his age was, year-old man and his equally aged wife, just having a blast.
Yeah.
They were comfortable. They were sitting at a socialized table. Andre, when modern travelers?
And that's one side of the arena. If you look at Annie, she is.
Yeah. I'm here with my magnificent 9-year-old daughter, who absolutely loves the hotel. She stayed in a lot of stayed in a lot of different hotels around.
She said this afternoon, it's the best day I ever had. She's fantastic. 9 years old. I mean,
I can only say she's a bright woman.
She's a very well educated woman. So, Andre, maybe you should explain exactly your relationship with citizenM. I mean, the question I really wanted to ask was, how do you manage behavior for all citizens who are coming to the product?
You added this the way you wanted. I think it's relevant that Michael and we go back close to 2 decades, I guess.
Oh, really?
Yeah, a long time.
I was very young.
Where Michael was the first manager ever to really care about the development of people. I mean, really care. When we were running College Tulip Business School, and Michael was running part of the College Tulip Empire at the time.
But that was intellectual, I guess. That was...
Yeah, but I mean, coming in for the first time when Michael just took on the job, this was like days after you started, already asking the questions that he was asking about what do you see in the hotels in terms of development, etc. I mean, that for us gave us already the connection at that time. Now, we've evolved both through different jobs, and I think at Performance Solutions now, we are so convinced about the relevance and the importance of taking whatever we want the guest to experience as a starting point. So if we, and this is how we have supported the evolution of citizenM as a concept as well, only from the software side, so we have nothing to do with the branding, the communication, but the people behavior, the working climate and the leadership. About 8 years ago, Michael and I and a small group of people in Amsterdam on a drawing board already determined what is it that we want our guests to experience. And from that desired experience, basically related to why you are as a concept and who you want to be as a concept. If you translate that into fan stories, then go back to what's the experience that creates those fan stories, you can dig deeper and deeper. And actually from experience you go to behavior, to working climate, to leadership that facilitates that experience. Whereby most companies do it, we call it traditional. That they start with a product, they create an environment, and through logistics and management behavior, you create a certain working climate and staff behavior that leads to a specific guest experience. So we rather work with reverse thinking than traditional thinking.
But we always say that when you guys were creating citizenM, you started with a blank piece of paper. Is that true?
Yeah, I think the reason being is that our industry, if we look through the decades, it's sort of like evolving a little bit at the time.
Let's say at a snail's pace?
Yes. It's like watching paint dry. It's like it's a pace that basically, I always sum it up, is that if we paint a white wall gray, we have innovated. It's pretty pitiful. And if you look at other industries, there is in a cycle a reinvention of the very same product, and what one does is each time go back to their target audience, check with their target audience what the contemporary need of that target audience is, and create an answer to that. So starting with a blank page was the only way for us to go. What you obviously do is you do have a backpack with experiences, and you grab back in there once you have seen what it is that you need to create. And to reinvent the wheel would be silly. I think innovation, to innovate is stupid. But if you want to be transformational, if you want to move the edges and the status quo, then you have to recreate from scratch. And what we have found is that we have changed many business processes. And by the willingness of changing business processes, we've made big strides forward.
I think, if as a voyeur of citizenM, privately and professionally over the last few years, the structural architectural moving architecture, as you say, is not it's not innovation, it's transformational. Is forming architecture which is desired in small rooms with fantastic living spaces is transformational. I want to I interrupted Andre, and I want to come back to it, but just on that transformational moment, where do you go from here?
Well, I think that once you start off with an idea and you have developed it, then you look at ticking three boxes. One, is your concept viable for life? Is it accepted? Can it deliver the guest satisfaction that you had as end objective in mind? And three, it would be nice if it lives up to its spreadsheet projections. And we take those three boxes, and I think that what we have done is we have been fully focusing and concentrating on just doing citizenM hotels as a product and being able to roll it out and only add small adjustments or small necessities as cities, countries, cultures require without changing the core concept. Now, there's a million ways that people have approached this. Have you thought of adding this? Have you thought of changing that? What we have done so far is run after one ball and try to do that well, instead of like a puppy running after 900 balls and doing mediocre. So I think that there is still so much growing for us to do with doing exactly what we have been able to accomplish, with one thing in mind: the evolution continues. So we do need to stay sharp as to, is the demand of our guests changing, yes or no? Give you one example. We were one of the first companies, and maybe still are one of the few, that are providing our guests with free guest content on television. Besides free internet, that's obvious, but we also wanted to provide free content on television. Why? Because in our industry, there was an expectation to have a certain amount of movie lineups in the broader sense, if you catch my drift, and we wanted to provide that free of charge. Today, with Netflix and the likes, where people bring their own content, now the focus for us is on how well can we, on any device that people bring in, bring your own content on television and make it really easy for them to use. So that's an evolution. So right. We're looking at that not only forward, but automatically replacing and retrofitting that in all our operating hotel rooms.
Okay. I want to, because I think obviously fashion and contemporarity and maintaining the tone of the brand as it evolves through, let's hope, the decades, is something that is pivotal to the future of the brand. But Andre, in terms of behavior, you've created, if you just sort of rewind also again a little bit and explain how you how you define the personality of the associates, of the team, and my most serious interest is how you're going to evolve that and how you create hierarchy, which I know is a subject close to Michael's heart.
Many questions. Let me start with first defining...
Sorry, it's a lot of questions.
Yeah. If we first define what's the good news. The good news is that citizenM is easy to copy on many aspects in terms of product, technology, brand, but the whole concept cannot be copied. That's the good news. You see already many copies in the form of different brands. For some reason, and Michael and I, we know why, they don't get yet the real essence of the concept, which is the heart. And that has to do with hierarchy, the reversed hierarchy. That has to do with also, what is the real change that citizenM brings? It's the combination of all the elements that fit together with, like your daughter also appreciates, plus the 75-year-old appreciates. It's like, I can really be me. And there's really attention for me. It's not the average check-in, the average blah, blah, blah. Hey, your room is on the 14th floor and we have a restaurant open till 10:30. Would you like us to book a table for you? And breakfast is from 6 to 10. All the crap that you get at the normal front desks. It's all taken out and it's replaced by, with less people, more attention. Hence, a better experience. Now, if you apply, like I said...
let me just interrupt you for 1 second. How much work do you do on personality? How much work, when you're finding the people that are going to be citizenM people, how much
Pretty simple. If we hire people, and that's what I keep saying, and Michael keeps saying, if we hire people who are the desired experience, you don't have to do anything on personality. Plus, you cannot train personality.
But you choose. You choose certain personality types.
We hire for attitude. Yeah.
You hire for attitude, character.
And I know many companies say they do, but we really do it. In the case of citizenM, and that's what I think is one of the most powerful elements of the concept and the approach of the concept, is that the leaders of the company really live the experience in terms of everything that's done is really setting up for the experience we want to deliver.
But when you're looking for those people, you're looking for people who are going to satisfy a certain task, or are they in 5 years' time going to be leaders?
I think they're all leaders already in their own fields, and we hire them. Oh, actually, we don't hire them, but I mean the way we handpick them is based on who they are. So we have, on day one of the immersion program that we do after we handpick them, we remind them and actually say, why do you think you are here where you are? And it's simply because of who they are. It's because of you.
Yeah, so there's zero skill that we look at. It's 100% at their culture, the way they are as individuals,
their characters,
and it is not only an external smile, but it's a white heart.
Their values.
Yeah.
It's values. And what we do is once we cast that, and basically through seeing them at work, at workshops when we do those castings, we can pretty much well tell how they're going to be with our guests. And then only the skill training takes place afterwards, concurrent, or I should say first, focusing on the culture of our organization. And it is very simple, and I think that Andre alluded to that, is that it's your organization's culture that will allow you to work that way or not.
Yeah.
And it is a willingness and a preparedness of an organization to do so. So we feel that ultimately it's the guest that speaks and is in charge, because either they show up or they don't show up. And they ultimately pay the bill. And in most organizations, you have a pyramid hierarchy whereby the board at the top actually never gets to meet that guest that is above. And we have turned that pyramid upside down, whereby the line staff, we call them ambassadors because they carry their and our culture out, are the ones in charge. And that takes a philosophy of an organization and the structure of an organization. So our hotels are retail stores for guest satisfaction, and we have a support office supporting them, and there's zero overlap. So at the hotel, they deal with guest satisfaction, period, full responsibility and nothing more.
And they're
the
fully
rest
empowered.
Is 100%.
And it's more that I think satisfaction is crap. citizenM is not about building satisfaction. citizenM is about building delight. And delight in such a way that you're actually wanting to come back and actually bring your friends is so much more powerful than just delivering satisfaction.
Now that you're a few years into it, and you're a few years into not just reverse thinking, but reversed hierarchy and empowering of, or putting the line staff, let's say, as the ambassadors and as perhaps the most important people in the organization, what challenges has that brought up? What issues against the traditional hierarchy, the traditional system, has that brought up, and what benefits as well?
I think a couple of lessons for the industry is that if you have hotel people, you will have to, for a concept like which is all about empowering and delight, you shouldn't work with too many, let's say, traditionally schooled hotel people, because you have to unlearn them more than they can learn. So that's one. I think the second, which is not something we learned, but we were, I guess, brave enough and bright enough in the beginning to already start with that, is not to look for where did they work before, what competencies do they bring, but it's more like who do they bring. That's classical. And we are now running into when if you increase, let's say, the size of the network, citizenM's opening hotel number 8 in Q1 next year, I believe, 2015, and then many to come soon after. That's when you suddenly, because you want to build this consistency of experience across the globe, it's that sometimes we run into managers who still have the tendency to manage, and that has something to do with if you call a manager on duty, they start to manage. whereby we want them to be stewards and we want them to be setting up the ambassadors for success. So our challenge is to keep the ambassadors being fed by stewards, being facilitated by stewards, instead of having supervisors and managers as you grow. Because the danger is you might become, and I don't know if you agree, Michael, with this, but you might turn into one of the bigger hotel chains, which
God forbid.
we don't want.
You're still a small company.
I will always stay a small company. I think that reality is that in the end of the day, we sell a night of sleep. In the end of the day, we operate in the same world as everybody else, and you have turnover, you have disappointments, you have your problems and everything. I think that by doing it the way we do is that we see a efficiency in the number of staff that we need in order to deliver a significantly above industry guest satisfaction. And I think that we guide people as much as possible. They're part of who we are. And hopefully that becomes important in their lives. But there is turnover. There is so much opportunity, even with our growth, to give everybody opportunity to grow.
And I think 2 lessons learned growing the company were, I mentioned the M word, management. If you grow, the tendency becomes to start managing people instead of managing process. I think we learned the hard way in some instances that we thought, no, we should go back to the drawing table. This is who we wanted to be. So let's stop managing people, but keep stewarding. We had a couple of resets there. Mm-hmm. Plus, also the casting. If you open a hotel and you do your casting, like Michael explained, in the turnover, which every hotel's had, initially we actually made the mistake of starting to do regular job interviews for the one vacancy to fill, which we stopped doing, and now it's only casting, even for the regular turnover.
It's very interesting to me from a cultural point of view. Will you cast for senior level staff? How will you adapt to South Asian cultures if you're growing in India or in Pakistan or in anywhere else in South Asia, and then Indonesia and the Philippines, where I'm very active? It's not the same.
It's not the same, and it is the same. So I think that cultures have each their uniqueness, as in every personality and everything that makes who we are is unique. At the very base, we're human beings. And I've been fortunate enough to live and work all over the world. And what I've seen is that the motivation of people comes from 3 things. One, I want to belong to something. So I want to belong to a company. I want to be proud about that company that I belong to. 2, I want to contribute to that company. So I don't want to do a job. I want to actually contribute what I'm capable of contributing to that company.
Which is very, very Asian.
And 3 is I want to be recognized for it. Mm-hmm. And if you do those 3, then you satisfy human-based needs, and then you're able to grow. Taking culture in consideration, absolutely of vital importance, but that does not, or that should not get confused with, I would say, human needs and the ability to bring the best out of people. And ultimately, citizenM is named after the mobile citizen, the people that travel, that are international, that are world savvy and tech savvy and understand. And guess what? They want to meet local culture. They want to meet people to make their travels and their journeys interesting. And I think that combustion, that's what we can facilitate easily.
I just wanted to ask Michael on the name, and everyone talks about the M, or most often talks about the M rather than the egalitarian, let's say, being nice, use of the word citizen. How much stick have you had for using citizen? Have you had any? I mean, is it?
No, 0.
Would you open in Moscow?
Yes, we would.
Happily, right?
Yeah, of course. I think that the mobile citizens were at our very core. Andre mentioned it before. What is the objective of your service delivery? Then you need to also, very importantly, and that's the essence, is who are you serving? And we wanted to serve the mobile citizen, people that in the mid-market space don't have an unlimited wallet and still want an aspirational product. And for those those people that travel frequently, we call them the mobile citizens. For those mobile citizens, we wanted to create something, and our ad agency, very clever, came up and said, "Look, let's turn it around. Let's call it citizenM." And then, as that citizen gave sort of a funny connotation, we started to use that a little bit in the language that we're using.
Well, your tone of voice is, I was written down. It's truly a masterpiece. It's the tone, and I use it with my teams, and we use it as examples of a balance of wit and smart language. But it is that I think that what's the word? The perceived notion of egalitarianism in the word citizen. That is the core, that I would say is the essence of the brand, or what we would call it that moment of conception of the brand.
Yeah, I think that we very much realize that if you would call a mass product like a car citizen, people would not look for a Ferrari like of car. They would still look for something that is consumable for everybody.
Absolutely brilliant, but messed up with the name. But we were in the office, we were talking about the essence of a brand that we were creating, and I was talking about citizenM as probably the only brand I know where the name is actually the essence of the brand.
Yeah.
Is there any vision for verticalization? Can there be a grand citizen or a minor citizen?
Well, I think that happens automatically, and I tell you why.
Citizen light.
No, but if you take a city like Glasgow, or you take a city like Rotterdam where we operate, affordable luxury there is rate-wise quite significantly different than London, Paris, or New York where we also operate. And so I think that the brand and its product will always flow a little bit. What I think is so confusing is that most hotel brands have like 2,200 brands, sub-brands, and they themselves know anymore what to qualify, where to qualify it, and the asset manager downgrades because he pays less for the frequent stayer. And then they upgrade the product so it shines and is a little beauty. So no,
that's not a way to evolve the brand.
No, at all.
But in terms of architecture and in terms of tone of brand, it has to evolve.
It does. In New York, we have a totally cool gym, and in New York, we have a incredible rooftop.
Right.
We have
the rooftop is. In tone, I haven't been there, but in tone is similar to
identical.
The lounges.
Identical who we are, and there, instead of doing it for big promoters out there and pushing hundreds of people through, it's only for our guests.
Right.
It's their space.
But if you compare Rotterdam as being, now you said it, like a little bit smaller than, for instance, Times Square. If you compare that to, for instance, Amsterdam, which was the prototype, then it really has evolved.
No, it evolves, obviously, and you grow, and I think functionality improves, you try to value engineer, but at one point, to provide affordable luxury, it got to have a limit. It cannot, if you want to remain affordable. Now, the funny thing is that
Hong Kong?
Yeah, of course. We're very active there, and I think that in the end, what will happen is that you optimize. You want to stay within that realm that is still affordable luxury, and you could always one-up yourself or others. I think the prime is to stay true to your core niche market that you have developed for. Stay close to them, see where they're evolving, stay up with that, and do that within your product. And then the range is wide enough to have the highs and the lows and to produce.
And what hasn't changed is the service delivery. Product-wise, yes, but the service delivery itself and the way how we activate that service delivery has been, I'd
Very
say,
consistent.
almost identical to the prototype.
How do you communicate desire on continents where you do not yet exist? So before you went into New York, you were known in New York?
No. And one of the things that we did is we want to be a hotel for the Americans and not be a European hotel in New York. Better known in Europe because of where we started and have properties operational. There will be more brand loyalty or brand recognition, and as such, you bring those people along with you. But if you open in Hong Kong, or if you open up in Taipei, or you open up in New York, or you open up in any city, the success is acceptance locally.
Absolutely.
And so if you do not focus on that local component, then you will miss the boat forever.
I've always said it.
So,
don't get it right in your own backyard.
And I think is that in the end, it is your distribution and the way you do your demand management that allows you. And thank God today with the modern technology, that is easy to accomplish.
It feeds you.
Yeah, it feeds you. Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely.
But thank you, Michael. Thank you, Andre. It's
Pleasure.
Really a great honor for us to have you on the Quocast.
Joining us from Phuket is Bill Barnett, Managing Director of C9 Hotel Works.
Last week I attended a conference in Lombok, Indonesia, which was quite interesting. For a long time, certainly, Lombok's been sitting on the entry point of South Valley, certainly in terms of a big tourism market. Everybody's been asking around. The more I travel throughout Southeast Asia, about where are the fast emerging markets? What's the next big success story? I travel Asia a lot. And I think it's certainly important whether we're looking, whether I'm in Phu Quoc in Vietnam, whether you're on the Cambodian Riviera, certainly, or whether you're in Palawan in the Philippines. And certainly, even for Lombok as well, what's going to be the next big thing across Asia? I think something that came out of the conference, it was quite interesting, again, because you had the Indonesia's Ministry of Tourism and the Creative Economy was talking about what their vision for the island is. There's sometimes a disconnect. I think something that we've understood over the years in places like Phuket and Bali as well is that despite government initiatives, sure, you go to India or you go to other countries with Incredible India and the Malaysian campaigns as well and other things, really it's up to the private sector to develop and define tourism brands. They're the ones who do the brand works. I guess that's for us it's key because when we look at a place like Lombok, which doesn't have a lot of hotel brands they're operating, I think it's unfair to compare Lombok certainly to perhaps the big two, again, Bali and Phuket. We've got to go back and see this probably more of a boutique destination, more like Koh Samui. People go to Koh Samui not necessarily for the big international brands. After years, there's more and more brands there, but it's the boutiqueness of the destination. So it's really taking an apples-to-apples eye view of the markets and saying, what's unique about these boutique destinations? Too often brands try to attach themselves. Too often I've been looking at things from Myanmar, from Sri Lanka, which again they're taking other campaigns, being the Indian campaign or being the Thai campaign, and trying to latch on to a concept. There's no real search for the real values of what these are. Lombok's a much different sales proposition than South Valley. It has different religious overtones. It's certainly early in the cycle. Bali's got 30, 40 years of lifestyle through its hotels, through its culture as well. Again, when we're looking at new destinations, how do the brands come out? How are hotels helping doing the job for that? I think there's certainly, it's an interesting subject for me because when you're looking at how these areas are going to start developing, is what's going to take them to the next step and start driving demand? Do you look at, not only beyond the hotel brands, but do you look at culture? Do you look at what's the DNA coming out? Are there things like, what's the geography like? What's the special products which are there? What's the culture of the people? What's driving them there? At the end of the day, for a great brand, you want people to choose them. It has to be a brand of choice, whereby they want to go to Lombok, they're choosing to go there, not just because there's a cheap flight available or something else, but there has to be something which, resonates with the traveler. How does that go? And for us, it's always a question, I guess, for emerging destinations, is it a top-down approach or a bottom-up? There's always a thing for smaller destinations. Bhutan, that's the case. That starts from a top-down because luxury travelers, that's where it's a limited market in terms of that, without access, without hotels as well. While traditionally many of the Asian resort destinations, certainly Bali and Phuket as well, grew from backpackers and grew from other elements as well, from a top-up, from a bottom-up approach, not top-up. So we started with the backpackers who developed the destinations, and these started to buzz on. Then come the bigger hotels, then come the branded hotels. So that's how the destination goes through. It's important to always look back at destinations and say there's a cycle to things. And no matter, we live in a strange world after the global financial crisis. I think one thing we understand from the hotel business and from tourism is it's cyclical. Nothing goes in a straight line up, nothing goes in a straight line down. So I think that those are necessary elements of this product. For me, Lombok certainly has its task ahead. Indonesia is an interesting market, very much like India. You have 8 million international tourists coming to Indonesia, and you have 240, 250 million domestic hotel stays. So what's going to attract domestic Indonesians to be coming to Lombok as well? Bali has always been a high destination for years and years where Indonesians want to go there. But what's going to actually shift these? What's going to draw them into Lombok or other destinations throughout Indonesia? And there has to be exciting products. There has to be some kind of resonance with them, with certain DNA which attracts them to these destinations. So I think it was interesting, feedback. Certainly talking to developers. I know Eric Levy, who did from TSI in Singapore, who organized the event, brought together a lot of developers, brought together tourism players as well, and market research firms, and said, what's going to be defining Lombok going forward? I think one case that we always know is it's not going to be the governments, it's not going to be these initiatives from amazing this or amazing that. It's going to be the private sector's job to develop these type of destinations. I think going forward for us, Lombok has all the elements. It has, again, for airlift, you can't stay there if you can't get there, so it has that element of getting to this destination. It's got great natural attributes, great beaches, great natural attributes as well, some good accommodation product. But to get to the next step, there has to be something more. There has to be some kind of people living, driving the vision for the destination. So again, we look at these all around Asia. Again, we go backwards. We look at Vietnam. We look at the Philippines. We look at Cambodia, Myanmar. Where's the next best destination going to be in the future? Certainly Lombok is something we think of. It's in the game, but they're going to have to come up with something very special to get going. Anyway, that's my viewpoint really on developing brand Lombok and developing this type of destination.
And that's all for this episode. I'd like to thank all of our participants for taking time out of their busy schedules. You can learn more about Quo at quo-global.com or follow us on Twitter on @QuoGlobal. This episode has been recorded and edited by the impeccable Kuhn Art. It was produced by the always flawless Achaya. And this week, our inspirational hero was Milton Glaser. I'm Orion Ray Jones saying goodbye, au revoir, and we'll see you next time.